All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It is Thursday, April 22nd, 2021 at 6 p.m. Can we verify a quorum?
Yes, we can. We have a quorum.
And can we confirm posting of the agenda by the Torrance City Clerk?
Yes. The agenda has been posted.
Are there any announcements of changes to the agenda?
I did want to make one announcement. It's in the delegation of authority memo, but there is a line under the consent calendar now, which we have officially added, which explains that everything on the consent calendar has come with a recommendation from the steering committee. So I just wanted to note that there's that new line there.
All right. Are there any public comments?
David or I don't have
No.
any public comments.
No.
All right, so so hopefully you've had a chance to look at the agenda, the consent calendar. I understand there may be changes to it. May I understand what the changes are, please?
Well, first, the only change I have is we are removing item B, the South Bay Fiber Network work orders, and they will come back next month.
Okay, are there any other items that, does anyone want to pull anything off the consent calendar?
I would want to pull the item related to, I'm sorry, the land use.
All right, who is that? Who is that, please?
This is Jim Roos from Palisades Estates.
Okay, so
And
we're pulling.
I would join.
Pardon me?
I would join in pulling item 6C relating to the special assessment for the land use planner.
All right, so we'll pull that one. Are there any others that need to be pulled? So with those two exceptions, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I move
Tanaka, so
approval.
approved.
I'm sorry.
Okay, David, can you please find out who was that, who made the motion and who seconded it?
I will assign the motion to Huff and the second to Tanaka.
Okay, may we have a reverse roll call, please?
Sure. Any opposition to approving the consent calendar except for items B and C?
All right.
Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. All right, let's discuss item C. Does someone want to discuss that, please?
I can start from my city, Rolling Hills. Our council is generally opposed to having a special assessment for the planner. As a general principle, they were not in favor of it. And they said, but if it ends up getting voted in, then the most they would agree to pay, given the limitations of our city and so forth, would be $1,000 towards the yearly amount of the planner. And they would like to have it limited to coming back after a year to evaluate the efficacy of such planner.
Okay, is there any other comment on that?
I have additional comments if
Please.
The city of Palisades Estates took this up during a council meeting, and the consensus of the group was that of the council was that we did not support this given the description of work. The council resolved that in fact we would not contribute to this, at least in its current form. And I wanted to express, I'm looking at the description of the duties of this person, and I wanted to express some of where our concern lies. Among probably the item in the duties that concerns us the most is a bullet that says track members' jurisdiction's compliance with state housing law, which we are concerned that the purpose of this the planner and by extension, the purpose then of this JPA is to enforce state law. And there's other language, I think, in the staff report that supports that conclusion. And then there's similar language that it's not quite as frank as that. That like track and participate in SCAG's RENA process, tracking the RENA process, for example, or assisting COG and member jurisdictions in developing a housing policy to ensure that state policy goals to accelerate housing production are met. And it's our feeling that that is contrary to at least the preferred policy or public policy of the city of Palos Verdes Estates, and we believe of other members. And I'll refer folks today. There's an article regarding actions by the city of Redondo Beach, expressing, I think, what are similar concerns that we have about the state's recent actions with regard to housing density. And the city of Redondo Beach, our neighbor, unanimously resolved that they wanted to push back, continue to push back against state mandates, and in particular on the idea that R1 lots would become zoned for 4 or 6 units, and petitioning specifically that they wanted to be able to have court review of various housing mandate decisions.
Thank you. Are there, oh, I see other hands. All right. George, then Stacy, then Christian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. From the city Torrance point of view, we actually did many actions. I see Councilman Mike Griffith is on there tonight. And we definitely are for local control. And as I hear Councilman Roos share some of the concerns from PVE, we would share the same concern. The way I'm thinking right now is, I don't want to make an assumption for all COG cities here. I made the assumption, but I will say that in general, we're all favor in terms of land use, that we favor local control, that we determine how do we issue which location would be issue for what use. And should we hire this person to help us collectively, that should be the goal, and we need to change the wording of it. I would be all for it. I will also share from, I had our staff look at it, the way we're heading is, if we change the wording, let's just say that to the satisfactory of, let's just say PVE, some of the concern, let's say the wording gets changed. How would that change the participation of the cities? And if not, those who choose not to participate, or only says, I'm only going to limit to, I'm only going to buy 1/3 of Costco's annual due. Is there a recommended approach going forward so that, we can get the help we need?
Would someone like to respond to George?
I'll respond. So I can't speak for the entire council, but I think that if we can find a more balanced approach on some of this language and make it clear that the duties include advocating for local control in development, I suspect that my colleagues will be fine with the assessment that has been proposed for cities our size.
All right. So Stacy, I believe, was next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if some cities are electing to pay maybe less or not at all any dollars, how does that affect the rest of the city's obligation?
Jackie, can you respond to that?
Okay, Well, there are, what we're calling them is free riders. I mean, the results that the planner will work on are going to help all cities, but we will not do any specific work in those cities, and we won't, we'll work with the cities that are paying the assessment. I do want to, while I have the floor, I do want to say that I don't know if I should just say paranoia or conspiracy theories, but working with SCAG on understanding the RENA process is something we've never had the resources to do. That does not mean we support the RENA process. We're taking action on our legislative agenda for local control. We're taking action against the RENA process whenever we can, but we don't take action well, frankly, because we don't understand the process. So the idea is to use this person to track the processes that we need to understand so that we can actually represent your cities better. And so I really feel I'm concerned that this is the first time I'm hearing this, because I wish I could have said that to the council in Palos Verdes Estates, that we're working very hard on local control issues. We've written 3 housing papers on them. And so what we're trying to do is get resources that we can use to show how these legislation and the lack of local control will actually hurt the South Bay. But understanding the process is also part of what we need to know.
Thank you, Jackie. Christian?
Yeah, just want to welcome Councilmember Ruse and try to just give a little bit of background here, because we have been discussing this for quite some time. The COG spends an enormous amount of time focused on transportation and homelessness and a variety of areas. And as you can imagine, we are all overwhelmed by the amount of state intervention when it comes to local control. And that's why each of our jurisdictions is speaking up. That's why this body speaks up through our legislative matrix and opposes a lot of the same bills that probably you do. And we are here in Redondo Beach. The idea of this position and the beauty of this organization here, right, is to help each of our individual cities and our planning departments in terms of dealing with a lot of the changes that are coming. So when I read the language in there, I don't read it necessarily the same way you do, right? I'm reading it more from the perspective of that our city staffs are overwhelmed trying to keep up with the mandates that keep coming our way. Not that we're trying to, as a COG, enforce anything that is coming down, but we are trying to understand it, deal with it, and the fighting back, to your point, right? That's really our job, right? As the elected officials. Our staff, can help us in each of our jurisdictions to come up with the necessary language to fight back and try to regain more local control. But from this perspective here, we're trying to do something similar to what the Gateway City COGs did, which was hire somebody to help us become more of a leader in the space of housing and development so that we can do more for our cities. And that's really, it's the collective process here that we're trying to address, not becoming a policeman for SCAG or HCD in this matter. And Jackie's right, SCAG has kind of been a black box when it comes to RENA, and we try to do what we can as individual cities, but I think we have a better opportunity of unpacking some of that black box as kind of a combined unit going into the next cycle. Those would be my thoughts.
Okay, it's going to be John. Jim, you have your hand up again, or you didn't take it down? So it's going to be John, Jim, and Drew, and those will be the only final comments because we have to move on. So John, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So our city, we did discuss this, and just like what Christian just said, we believe that as a region, we're stronger, especially when we're sharing strategies and best practices. So we voted 5-0 to support this. So I hear my fellow Peninsula cities and their concerns, but I believe that they are unfounded, because if that was the direction as was stated, then our city would not have supported this at all either. We are interested in trying to meet the housing goals in the way that works best for the city of Rancho Palos Verdes. And we believe we can do that by working with our fellow South Bay cities in terms of strategy. And our city doesn't have an extra resource or person to understand the bigger picture, as was mentioned by Christian and by Jackie. So I just want to let the group know that our city actually is supporting this. And I see my friend Mike Griffiths is here tonight, and he'll be talking about that too. And it's kind of all hands on deck, as we know. And so the more resources we can use for housing and regional planning, we feel is best for our city and for our South Bay. Thank you.
So Drew is next and then Jim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to get clarification on Councilmember Armato's question about if folks do not opt into this program, how is the remainder allocated to the rest of the participants? That's the first part. Second part is I would like to entertain a substitute motion, which would just be to slightly adjust the language, to add some language that we are within the parameters of land use planning. We're looking to basically protect local control. I think it's as simple as that, is adding some language to clarify that that is our intent. So those are my 2 points. Thank you for your time.
All right, Jim, you had another comment?
I do, yeah. So I would, I'm trying to think here. The direction I had gotten from from my city council is that they're against this as it is. I think that if we combined a change like what Mr. Boyles recommended, where we would put there would be some statement in here specifically that the intention here is to retain local control, and we also strike the track members' jurisdictions compliance, which I think the language is in the first bullet, which is assist the COG and members' jurisdictions in developing a housing policy. That I think is the right kind of language to express what we mean. Whereas tracking a jurisdiction's compliance suggests that the JPA is taking on a role in ensuring compliance. And I think just striking that bullet would not change the intent of what the director would do, but would make it clear, it would be consistent with our intent.
Olivia?
All right, Jackie.
We can clearly add something about local control. The members, first of all, the one thing I forgot to say is we are absolutely a voluntary organization. So we're not going to be able to force anybody to comply with anything as far as housing. But just today, I received something from SCAG, which because they're receiving something from the state, and they use us and to find out where they are with housing compliance. And I just sent it out to our community development directors. They're responding to me. That is what I call tracking housing compliance, finding out where they are. And it's my understanding the reason SCAG is doing this is so that they can ask for an extension on housing elements. So, I mean, I think if we can make wording that says we want local control and we want to speak for the cities, and as I think I said in the memo, the actual scope will be developed by the community development directors. I would hate to take out something like tracking compliance, because it's very important for us to understand where you are. Not that we're going to make you comply, but we at least need to know where, like what the problems are. I understand Rolling Hills doesn't have a certified housing element. That's important for us to know as we try to figure out how to protect local control.
Is the opinion of the JPA something that would be reportable to the SCAG or to the state?
No, the JPA doesn't, we don't have an opinion on that.
Well, someone would. Track members' jurisdiction means someone's going to have an opinion.
No, it means that, to me, what it means is what happened today. The SCAG sent us an email that said, can you tell us where the housing elements are in each of your cities? I sent it off to the cities. They're responding to me. That's tracking the compliance.
All right. So at this point, it seems to me that we are at a point where we could either table this for the next meeting if we're not under is there any urgency to actually pass this tonight, Jackie?
I would like it passed tonight because we have an MOU from SCAG to work on all the money that they're planning to give us. And I need to start advertising for someone, even though we're not going to be able to hire till July, I need to start advertising for someone. And so in order to sign the MOU with SCAG, I need to know if we have somebody who's going to be able to manage it.
Okay, so at this point, what I'd like to do is to, I think Drew made a substitute motion to add language to say that the intention is to maintain local control. With that, do I have a second on that?
I'll second that, Jim Gaisley.
Okay, so there's been a motion and a second that the special assessment be approved with the addition of the language to say the intention is to maintain local control. May we have a reverse roll call?
Sure. I'm going to do this individually. So Carson,
Abstain.
El Segundo,
Yes.
Gardena,
Abstain.
Hawthorne,
Yes.
Hermosa Beach,
Yes.
Inglewood, Inglewood,
Councilman Falk?
Lawndale,
Abstain.
Lamita,
Aye.
Los Angeles, not present. Manhattan Beach,
Yes.
Palos Verdes Estates,
I will abstain, but intend to agendize this for a city council meeting to review our stance regarding the assessment.
Rancho Palos Verdes,
Yes.
Redondo Beach,
Aye.
Rolling Hills,
No,
Rolling Hills Estates,
Yes.
Torrance,
Yes, but may I make a comment? I think some of the questions we had on how do we move forward needs to be answered and clarified. The way the voting is, it's I'll use my slang, it's kind of sketchy. How do we move forward, whether it's yes or no? It doesn't seem like a clear path. But we were yes before, but the concern, I really need a clarification so that we
We
know
need
what
to
we're
move
doing.
forward with the voting. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
LA County District 2,
Yes.
and LA County District 4.
Abstain.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Got 10 yes votes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 abstentions. I've got 1 no and 1, 2, 2 no votes. So the motion passes.
Thank you. All right, we need to move on. We have two presentations tonight. And I'm going to start with the first one.
can I ask for a point of order? About the vote. If we have a quorum, but a lot of the people from our quorum abstain, and I counted 1, 2, 3, and there's no answer from some of them for 5.
Should be 5
There was 5
abstentions.
abstentions, and then there was several people who were not present. So do we actually, I mean, it has to be, I thought, measured from the number of people that are voting as opposed to people who are abstaining or not present, that it still has to be representative of a quorum, I thought, as a point of
9
order.
votes, 9 votes is a majority. And there were 10 votes. So there were 10 votes to pass it. So it does pass.
Okay, all right.
All right, the first presentation is from Glenn Acosta. This is a construction update on the Clearwater project. The first presentation is from Glenn Acosta, Sanitation District Senior Engineer, who is the Community Relations Officer for this project. Mr. Acosta has been the lead regulatory and legislative affairs representative on solid waste policy issues. He is the lead community relations representative for the project we are hearing about this evening. He has a master's degree in civil engineering from UC Irvine. He grew up in New York City and Puerto Rico. His hobbies include golf, jogging, and screenwriting. Mr. Acosta, welcome to the South Bay COG.
Thank you very much for having me here this evening. So let me go ahead and share my screen, if I can do that. Let's see, there you go. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So thanks again for having me here to give you an update on our Clearwater project. And let me start off by mentioning who we are. I think most of you know, but just in case, the Los Angeles County Sanitation Districts manages the sewage, or what we call wastewater, for over half the population in LA County. And we do that by using 1,400 miles of sewer pipes and directing that flow to one of our 11 wastewater treatment plants. Our largest plant is in Carson by the 110 freeway. And so sewage flows into our plant, and in about 12 hours, half a day, we turn that into clean water. And that clean water is sent out to the ocean using 2 tunnels that were built 60 and 80 years ago. And so the Clearwater project is about addressing this aging infrastructure by building a new tunnel. So if you look at the blue lines, those are the alignment of the existing tunnels, and it's pretty much like a straight shot to the ocean. The green line is the alignment for the new tunnel. And the new tunnel is going to be 18 feet in diameter, 7 miles long. And the reason why it's a squiggly line is because when we were doing outreach early on, the local residents did not want the tunnel to go underneath homes or businesses. Instead, they wanted the tunnel to go underneath the streets, which is what we're doing. And so it'll take about 7.5 to 8 years to complete the project. And so here is an aerial view of the alignment. So here's our plant in Carson, here's Royal Palms Beach. And so this is the how the tunnel the alignment will be. So nowadays, when you build a tunnel, whether it's a subway in New York or the Big Dig in Boston, you use what's called a tunnel boring machine. And so the way it works is that in the front, you have a cutting head that cuts away the soil and the rock, and it pushes everything to the back. And then you have all the supporting gear in what's called a trailing gear. And so what you need for tunneling is all contained in this trailing gear. And so our tunnel boring machine is about 2.5 football fields long. And so the way this machine works is that it cuts away at the rock and soil, and then it stops about every 5 feet, and then it starts putting up the walls of the tunnel. And then once it makes a ring, it pushes off that ring, and then it builds more walls. So this machine builds the tunnel as it digs. And so if you were to go inside a project like the one in Seattle, you would see that the walls are built behind the tunnel boring machine. And so the walls or the wall segments are being built in a plant in Palmdale, and they are actually making the wall segments for the LA Metro job. And so we bring those wall segments in, we put it down in the shaft, and then it gets sent by rail car all the way to where the tunnel boring machine is, and then it grabs it with an articulating arm and it starts building the wall. So in order to get the tunnel boring machine into its starting depth, we need to build a shaft so that we can lower the machine. And so if you were to look at our facility in Carson, we have an empty lot that we own, and that's where the shaft site is. And if you were to fly over the shaft, say, or later last year, you would see the shaft in the middle of the site. It's about 60 feet wide and over 135 feet deep. So you can stack 3 school buses and it's still deeper than that. And so the shaft is actually deeper than the water table. So the water table in that area is about 45 feet deep. The shaft is actually 135 feet deep. And so the machine is actually wider than the shaft. And so in order to get the shaft down there and get it assembled, we're building a starter and tail tunnel so that we can fit the machine in there and so it can start its journey. And we're almost done with that phase of the project. So this is our tunnel boring machine. On the left is when it was being built and assembled in Germany. And on the right was a ceremony that we held last week at our construction site to unveil the machine to the public and let the public see it for the first time. The machine, it's called Rachel. We had a contest where kids submitted names, and the name that was chosen for the machine is Rachel, after Rachel Carson. She wrote a book a long time ago about preserving the environment, and it started an environmental movement back then to preserve the earth. And so we thought that was a great name, and the judges chose Rachel for this machine. We also had an art contest where kids in elementary school, middle school, and high school submitted artwork that kind of spoke to preserving the waterways and keeping it clean. And so these were the winners, and their artwork was put on the side of the machine. So the tunnel boring machine arrived in pieces. It was put on a boat off Germany. It arrived in the LA harbor, and it took 90 trucks to bring those parts into our site. And so this is what it looks like now today. So all the excavated soil that is generated during excavation, a lot of the machines nowadays, they just put on a conveyor belt, take it back to the shaft site and pull it out. Our machine is actually a slurry machine. So we mix the soil with water and make it into a slurry, and then we pump that out. And this plant at the site dewaters that slurry, and then the trucks take away the dirt from that plant. So since we're tunneling 7 miles, the front part that's cutting away the soil, those parts need to be maintained or replaced. And so in order to do that, because we're under the water table, we need to create a concrete block. And so the idea is when the tunnel boring machine gets there, it stops in the middle of that block. And now we have a dry environment for the workers to be able to go to the front, replace parts, and do maintenance. And so the way we make these concrete blocks is we have a drill rig that injects concrete into the soil, and it moves every so many feet until you create a block large enough where the TBM will be able to fit into. And so if you look at the tunnel alignment from our plant, it's shown here in the yellow line. And so we created our first concrete block last year on the north eastern side of Harbor Regional Park. We finished the second maintenance block late last year, and we're working on the third maintenance block on Gaffey. And so this is what it looks like when you're trying to create this underground concrete block. So the last block, which is on Gaffey, we're almost complete with that work. And after that, we'll repave the road and we'll be done with that street. So with that, I will stop sharing and answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Acosta?
Olivia, I just want to thank him for the presentation. I've been on the sanitation board there for, geez, 12 years now.
I'm sorry, Jim, could you repeat that? You kind of broke up there.
Okay, I want to thank him for the presentation, and it was much needed. I voted on this about 10 years ago. And I don't know if you, there's the two old pipe they have now, they can't even, if one shut down, we're in a lot of trouble. So we'll have backflow. Did you mention what could happen if one of those pipelines we're using now goes down?
Yes, so if one of those tunnels were to collapse or overwhelmed by, say, storm flow, we can't let the plant flood as things back up. So we would have to release partially treated or raw sewage into Machado Lake, which many of you know. There's been a lot of money spent restoring that lake. And if that measure were not enough, and the flows keep coming in, we would then have more dire things to do, which would be going upstream, opening up the valve next to the Dominguez Channel and letting raw sewage flow into that channel, which would then flow into the LA Harbor and make its way around the surrounding beaches. So we don't want to wait around for that to happen, which is why we're doing this project.
Yeah, that's why this is very necessary. And if sewage got into the harbor, they'd shut the harbor down, so there's no more cargo coming in and out of there. So I'm looking forward to when this is completed.
Thank you.
You got a very good staff there. Robert's done a great job.
Thank you. I will let him know.
Okay.
Thank you. Council Member Huff?
Yes, I would just second Councilman Gaisley's input there about what a great project this is. I know most of us have rotated through the sanitation district when we were mayors, so have a deep appreciation for the necessity for that. Regarding the maintenance block installation there at Gaffey, whereabouts is that on Gaffey?
So it's right where the softball field is, across from the refinery. There's a LAPD shooting range there. And so we're occupying the middle of Gaffey, and we've closed down Gaffey on weekends to do the work. And so we're hoping to wrap things up and repave that section of Gaffey and then have it open fully.
Great, thank you.
Council Member Chin?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. My question is that I think the last time I saw the boring was at the boring company from Elon Musk. My question is probably a little bit more curiosity, because every time you have maintenance, I'm going to make the assumption you need a special part from Germany. Is there a lot of difference in technology, or was this a bid that says, you know, you got one from Germany, one from local here, and then the lifetime of maintenance costs, which one?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our tunnel boring machine was made by one of the premier companies in the world out of Germany. And it's custom made because it has to travel 7 miles. And the first half of the tunnel is soft soil. The second half, where you go underneath the PV Peninsula, it's all bedrock. So it has to be able to cut both types of soil and rock. And as far as parts go, you know, we have a lot of tunneling experts on board, and so they know what we need to have in stock for this particular job. And so we have basically everything that we need immediately available. So if there's something special that we might need, we can always order that part, but we kind of foresee what we need and we stock accordingly.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Acosta, for that wonderful presentation.
Thank you. I hope everyone has a great evening. Good night.
Good night. Next is the South Bay Regional Partnership and SoCal REN Public Agency Programs. Nicole Manzanares manages messaging, outreach, and engagement for the SoCal REN Public Agency Programs. She leads the enrollment process for new agencies looking to join the SoCal REN and designs and facilitates workshops and webinars for the program. Nicole has a BS in Environmental Science and Policy from Cal State Long Beach. Fernanda Craig is an environmental scientist and currently the Environmental Initiative Climate Policy Development Program Manager for the County of Los Angeles. She leads SoCal REN's public sector and multifamily program portfolios. Welcome to both of you. Welcome to the South Bay COG.
And I think Fernanda will speak first, but I want to make sure everyone's seeing the right screen here. Can I just get confirmation that you're seeing our title slide?
Yes, yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
I'm on the same boat, sharing screens. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. Well, it will be really hard to follow Mr. Acosta's presentation. That was fantastic, but I will do my best. You can go ahead and move on to my slide. So, well, the SoCal REN, as we call it's the Southern California Regional Energy Network, was authorized in 2012 by the California Public Utility Commission, or as we call CPUC, to assist Californians in reaching our state energy goals. I should say our state very ambitious energy goals. The County of Los Angeles, I'm a program manager for the County of Los Angeles, and we are the program administrator for the SoCal REN. So the County of Los Angeles manages the portfolio of programs under the umbrella of the SoCal REN. And SoCal REN provides energy efficiency programs and services in the public residential sectors, offers financing programs for energy efficiency upgrades, and supports a variety of workforce education training initiatives as well. And throughout the areas served by the Southern California Edison and SoCal Gas. Our service territory comprises of 20 million people, 12 counties, and over 50,000 square miles, and over 700 public agencies, right? So focusing on disadvantaged communities and hard to reach communities, we've started implementing specific strategies to reach all the communities through our territory, including the 700 plus public agencies that I mentioned. And we can use our public agency programs as a funnel to promote our other SoCal REN programs from the other sectors. I will go over a little bit of them later on. Since public agencies are in a unique position to communicate to their constituents about the various opportunities and resources available, right? So we work with regional groups to support increased enrollment, peer-to-peer sharing, and regional tailoring to maximize projects and energy savings. And we are so glad that South Bay City COG is an official partner with of SoCal REN due to its local and regional knowledge, the existing relationships with agencies that you guys have, your access to key decision makers. And we also work with SBCCOG to identify local needs and opportunities for potential and new SoCal REN programs, or even to modify existing program. We have discussions, you know, and accept all feedback. We very much appreciate the relationship we have with the COG. There are 4 service categories, like I mentioned, like public agency specific services, which I will not go too much into it because Nicole will be giving us that overview after me. We have the residential programs, financing programs, and workforce education training. I used to manage the workforce education training in the residential sectors, as well as being the reporting lead. But recently I've switched to the public sector, and I also manage non-SoCal-REN commercial sector for the county. The SoCal-REN public agency program incorporates 4 different programs that offer a variety of services. The project delivery program. We also have the meter savings program. We have the revolving savings fund and the pathway to zero. And again, Nicole will go over those with you later because the focus of this presentation is the public sector. The highlight of the residential sector is the multifamily program, which is focused on whole building upgrades for multifamily properties within the SoCal-REN territory. With the goal of providing reduced operating costs, more comfortable living environment, safer living environments. And again, the focus is a comprehensive upgrades to the properties. And then we also have the SoCal-REN workforce education, workforce development program, or workforce education training program. It provides training tools and opportunities for diverse participants in disadvantaged communities to pursue careers and contract opportunities in energy efficiency. And you can learn about all those programs on SoCalREN.org. One highlight of the SoCal-REN workforce education training program is a recent program you might have heard in different presentations is the Green Path Career Program. The Green Path Career Program provides training to former foster youth at risk of homelessness, and so that they can become auditors. And we leverage this partnership that we have with contractors to place them in jobs. So that's one of the highlights, but there are several programs. I will pass along to Nicole.
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much, Fernanda. So I'm going to move along to the next slide. Let me make sure. Oh, here we go. Okay. So really, as Fernanda mentioned, I'll be focusing on some of the successes, as well as introducing you to the resources and various programs that are offering direct energy project support to your cities, and even other agencies like school district and water districts, sanitation districts across your region. And so what we see here is a big snapshot of the entire 12 county territory that Fernanda mentioned. And we currently have partnerships with 5 local implementers, including that's the South Bay Council City of Government. So I wanted to highlight the 3 broad objectives for our regional partnerships and just reiterate, what Fernanda said, really increasing engagement and facilitating better access to our programs and resources is of the utmost. So we've developed over the past year a coordinated marketing and outreach approach with the COG team, and they actually lead our enrollment efforts, bringing on new cities and school districts over the past year to our programs. One of the other things we focused on is bringing more education and training opportunities surrounding energy and resiliency to the local leaders within your city staff. And the third, really, we want to catalyze the energy savings actions that are ultimately providing you the opportunity to improve public facilities, bring cost savings to your agencies, and really bring the community environmental benefits back to the South Bay. So I will mention that, in this partnership, we're supporting the COG to continue the hard work that they've already been doing for many, many years with your cities and in helping them to access energy efficiency programs, funding and financing opportunities and any of those incentives that everyone loves to receive. So we're bringing a lot more of that, and even the unique innovation in order to do more or fill gaps where those programs aren't really fulfilling all the needs and opportunities for your cities. So just to highlight the regional impact shown here, 7 cities have enrolled and 1 brand new school district, Redondo Beach Unified, has joined the network. Locally, we presented 4 educational opportunities to your city staff that are involved in facility planning and energy management. And what's not highlighted here, I wanted to call out that the COG team joined other partners last year in a statewide panel discussing regional perspectives on energy opportunities, challenges, and the work that we're launching. So it's been a wonderful opportunity to work with Kim and the rest of her team to really plan out and successfully deliver a lot of really exciting things. Fernanda mentioned our SoCal REN public agency programs, project delivery and metered savings program are really where our technical services lie. And this is what helps to identify opportunities, scope the viable project, conduct financial analysis on any of the energy efficiency strategies that we're recommending, and then revolving savings fund. This is a unique offering where we provide 0% upfront financing for projects, and that's really enabling folks to do things that they know are valuable, they would like to do, but maybe the capital funding isn't quite there yet. So that's a great newer offering that we brought on board in the past year or so. And then Pathway to Zero is really where, coupling with efficiency, we can help agencies serving disadvantaged communities, low income communities, plan for things beyond efficiency, things like solar, innovations in electric, vehicle infrastructure, and kind of other unique things that would help build a zero net energy or stronger sustainability strategy. And so really with that, this is just a highlight on those no cost services that we're providing. Benchmarking is a way that we help you evaluate and really target opportunities based on where you spend money, where you use energy. Technical support includes ASHRAE level energy audits. This gets us into facilities, identify where opportunities for savings are there. We coordinate with facilities staff and really scope out viable projects that might come come to the councils, boards, and other decision-making bodies at your agencies. And then really we provide dedicated project management support from start to finish. And so I think that's really, the value that we're customizing. We're an objective third party, and we're really bringing a lot of resources that you would typically pay a consultant to provide. And, it's wonderful that our program funding enables that to come at no cost. And really, I wanted to close out sharing a little bit about what we've been pursuing this year. And so I'm really excited to say that the City of Carson is really kind of front and center working hard on projects. There are 5 efficiency projects underway. Hopefully we'll get to come back and share the completion of many of those projects later this year. So that's very exciting. Energy audits are about to be launched with Torrance. And then I mentioned Redondo Beach Unified School District just enrolled. So we're really just getting to know them. And then, the really great first step is that benchmarking, just energy analysis, really planning and understanding what the needs are and where our services can provide support. So Rolling Hills Estates, Hawthorne, Redondo Beach, as well as Hermosa Beach have received a customized energy analysis, and we are planning for technical services to identify specific opportunities later this year. So I think with that, I will say thank you for allowing us to present to you. Fernanda, if you have any final remarks, I'll just pause before handing back to you for a couple of comments.
No, thank you for having us. And please let us know if you have any questions, or if you think about a question later on, feel free to contact us or visit our website. There's a lot more information than we can present here with a limited amount of time.
Absolutely. We would love to speak to you and be able to help bring some of the benefits to you if you're not already enrolled. Kim, I think you wanted to make a couple of comments here.
Yes, I just wanted to stress to all the cities that this is really intended to help you meet your individual city goals. So programs can be tailored to help you meet sustainability strategies, capital improvement plans, your climate action plans, your energy action plans, any of your facility enhancement work that you do. So we're really wanting to bring resources to your facility staff and also opportunities to leverage funding. So I'm really working, our goal is to get actually every single city enrolled in the program so that you can access resources. Also with a lot of the discussion that's happening at the federal level and the state level for energy efficiency funds to come down, this might be a mechanism for you guys to take advantage of those opportunities in the future. So we're really trying to position you to be able to take advantage of all of those things. And I've got a couple cities that we're going to be meeting with soon. We're going to be meeting with Gardena. We're going to be meeting with Manhattan Beach. We've got several cities already enrolled, and we've already met with Lomita and Rancho Palos Verdes, and we're hoping to get those enrollment forms signed very soon. So with that, is there any questions?
Are there any questions for either of the speakers? Well, I want to thank you for that very helpful presentation, and to let you know that our city will definitely be taking advantage of it, and I hope others will as well.
Thank you.
With that, I want to go back for a moment to our previous discussion on the special assessment. There was a question in the chat room, and I didn't see it initially, but I'd like to see if we can address it tonight. If not, I'd like to ask Jackie to take a look at that. The question was, how will share of fees be located when cities don't participate, and can they opt out? That was a question that was in the chat. Jackie, can you address that tonight, or could you take it back and be ready to address it next time?
Okay, I think I'm not sure I understand the first part, because we sort of discussed it already, that cities that are not paying the fee will obviously receive, when we talk about it at meetings, they're going to hear what we're doing, but we're not going to reach out to them. And as I've said several times, we're a voluntary organization. We ask everybody to pay the fees. They will be on the invoice, and we hope that everybody will. Last time we had a special assessment, we had 100% compliance, and that was for a couple of years in a row. So we've never had a problem before, and I hope that people will see the value and do that. While I've got the floor, I also received something in the chat from Sarah Patterson, who's from SCAG. She apparently couldn't make her thing work. So she wanted to say that SCAG is on record at previous meetings saying that they are not going to monitor the housing process. So I think no one is trying to force compliance, at least in the regional or sub-regional level.
All right, thank you. I believe Mike Griffiths wanted to say a few words. I'm not sure on what topic, but
I think he wanted to speak after Bill Brand, I think.
Correct.
Oh, okay. All right, Mayor Brand.
Hi, Olivia. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Good to see everybody. Let me go ahead and try to share my screen and get started on this. You see that all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody. This is a hot issue. Oh yeah, and it's been hot and it's getting hotter. So happy to share with you my experiences over the last 4 years in watching this and working this, and particularly with Senator Ben Allen and Assemblymember Miritsuchi. It's state legislature basically versus local control. This is as old as since California was started. It begins with the housing shortage and affordability crisis Yeah, as part of the statewide group, I'll mention later, we've zeroed in on really what we have is an affordability crisis. But Sacramento is operating from these basic premises that, you know, we have a housing shortage and an affordability crisis. They're both crises. It's the fault of local control, largely. And as you see, and as we've watched for years, they are stripping local control's ability to govern land use and development and where things go and how much through RENA and through all the various laws I'll speak about. Yeah, numerous bills over the last years, started really with SB 827. I was in Scott Wiener's office 3 years ago with our council member Narenheim. Ben Allen introduced us. We went in there, we talked for about half an hour. It was clear to me what path he was on, and it was not going to veer. And that was quite a while ago, and it has not changed. SB 827 was killed, became SB 50. Most of you are familiar, it allowed 3 stories within half mile of transit and eliminated all parking requirements. So it was a disaster for anybody anywhere near a bus stop. It was, and a bus stop was, you know, basically a transit corridor. So if you had a metro bus or any other kind of bus going down, stopping within 15 minutes during rush hour, anything within quarter mile or half mile qualified. So it was a disaster. Even our planning director at the time, Aaron Jones, termed it that way. So we're all familiar with that. Now they're piecemealing it. 827 was defeated, and SB 50 was held up in a committee appropriations by Senator Portino. And now it's back in a variety of bills. So instead of one big bill, you see all these bills that really are accomplishing the same thing through a very complex process. Different bills being introduced by different legislators. What are the major impacts to us? A lot of people don't realize residential development costs more than the revenue it generates. Redondo Beach did a study some time ago, and that ratio was 2 to 1. That you know, the costs were 2 to 1 of the revenue we got. If you don't know already, you should figure out how much you get in state property taxes back to your city. Redondo Beach gets about 16.7% property tax revenue, which doesn't come close to providing all the various services that we need. Traffic and parking, transit is a fallacy for most cities, as I've already mentioned. Yeah, and so the impacts of traffic and parking, particularly to cities that are kind of outlying these major job centers. We see it here in Redondo Beach, down PCH, down Aviation Boulevard, Inglewood Avenue, people going north mostly to work. And yeah, that's just going to get worse if you add residential to those outlying areas instead of creating job centers. Infrastructure, roads, sewers, libraries, parks, we all know that. As we increase residential development, there'll be more costs associated with that. Classroom sizes. Where are we going to get the schools? Our schools are full. Redondo Beach Unified School District does not issue any outside permits anymore. And if you talk to our superintendent of the schools, said we're full. And so, you know, classroom sizes are going to increase. And of course, water. We all know that water is always a constraint. And yeah, with no answers. There's really no answers from the state in any of these bills for what we're faced if we start just complying, like splitting lots in SB 9. There's an aerial photo of, it's mostly Hermosa Beach, actually, there on the right. That's the most densely populated area in the entire California coast at 14,000 residents per square mile. RENA just increased, or SCAG, not really SCAG, Housing and Community Development. It eventually trickled down to Hermosa Beach, and their RENA number went from 2 to 525, I think. So just as an example, other cities around the state are just getting hammered by these RENA increases. Redondo Beach is about doubled, but you'll see in other places there's dramatic increases. Real estate prices are inelastic. The other thing that you see coming in the theory in Sacramento that's really governing all this is that it's supply and demand. It's just simply supply and demand. You increase supply and demand will go down and prices will go down. Well, real estate doesn't work that way. You just look at the prices and the density. San Francisco, the most densely populated area in the entire state, also happens to be one of the most expensive. So density really doesn't drive prices. Hawthorne, very densely populated, 14,000. They're at 758,000 average price. And by the way, these numbers are easy to find. Just go on Google and look up Wikipedia for any city. You'll get the density. Inglewood is 12,000. They're at 686. Lawndale, 16,000. They're at 674. So as you can see, as the density moves around, the prices really don't move. Redondo Beach, we're at 11,000, lower density, but we're at 1.2 million. And Hermosa Beach, they're at 14,000, and they're an average house price of 2 million. So, real estate prices depend on many factors: location, schools, jobs, infrastructure, open space, culture. Look at San Francisco. I mean, what's the time? Everybody want to live in San Francisco, huge job centers there. Didn't really matter about density. Prices were extremely high. So inelastic's kind of an economic term, meaning it just doesn't move based on that. So supply and demand, you hear that? We heard it from all the state assembly members and senators that we've had on the KL calls recently. They start off with, well, it's just simple supply and demand, and nothing could be further from the truth when it comes to real estate prices. One size does not fit all. We've all heard these arguments. Cities are best equipped to address the needs and impacts associated with adding housing. Most people you're finding are fully on board with the idea of an affordability crisis. We've got to get more affordable homes in a lot of these areas, and to have a good, a good mix of the community and a good cross section of our community, and to reduce the amount of commuting that's going on. Centralized land planning in Sacramento is actually centralized, if that makes sense. But something we've learned on these calls, and I'll mention California Alliance of Local Elected. So every Sunday I'm on a call with local elected officials up and down the state, many in the Bay Area, some in San Diego, our area. And what we've learned from them, from every Sunday at 4 o'clock. Last Sunday we had Senator Portantino. The Sunday before that we had Senator Hertzberg. Is that they marched to Governor Newsom, Senate Pro Tem Tony Atkins from San Diego area, and Senator Scott Wiener. And if you don't, and you're a state legislator, well, you're in the outs. So we've heard that time and time again. Senator Hertzberg, he is the majority leader of the state Senate in Sacramento. And he said 3 times on the call, Tony Atkins is my boss. And that was in response to many people challenging him out in the Valley. How come you don't push back on some of these? And basically, we've heard time and time again, they'll be stripped of committees, their budgets will be cut, their staff will be cut. So they kind of walk this line. And you'll see Senator Ben Allen doing that. He's very influential up there, and he's really having a tough time, because I heard him on a call with the Santa Monica neighborhood group last weekend, and it's tough. It's tough because all the local cities are against these stripping of our local control, and he's in Sacramento trying to walk the line and not lose all the credibility that he's developed up there. Not credibility, but just mojo to get other things done. There's so many other things going on, of course, as we know. So and local planning is local. So the current bills, SB 9, I think you guys are familiar with this. Last year was SB 1120. They keep bringing them back. They get defeated and then they bring them back and they just change the number, and they're virtually identical. It eliminates single family zoning in the entire state of California. Yeah, you heard that right. Single family zoning. They're going to do lot splits, and on each lot you'll be able to build an ADU and a junior ADU. So there's a lot of debate about all this, but the way it washes out right now is your single family lot will go from 1 house to 6 units potentially. So what you'll see is when your neighbor's house, I don't live in a single family, but if you do, your neighbor's house will go up for sale, and if these all pass and get moved through, you won't get a new neighbor. You're going to get most likely an investment firm. We're talking about commoditizing real estate and global capital get involved in California real estate. You're not going to get a new neighbor. You're going to get a box, and in that box are going to be, 6 units. So you're finding already that potential new homeowners and buyers are getting priced out of the market with cash offers from these investor groups that see the huge return in building out to the max. SB 10 last year was 902. It's unconstitutional, overrides local voter approved initiatives, and eliminates any CEQA requirements if the city wants to rezone an area for 10 units per acre. But that's notwithstanding any locally approved initiative. So you hear that all over the state. People are like, they can't override the voters. And so, but that's what they're trying to do. In fact, I was a designated opposition speaker on SB 902 last year before the Assembly Local Government Committee, I believe it was. And right before I came on, Senator Scott Wiener came on, who's the author of 902 last year, and took out that portion of 902 that overrode voter approved initiatives. And that's really the heart of that bill, 902. And then it came back this year as 10, SB 10 with it back in there. So right now, Ben Allen is against it because of that particular item. 1401 is moving, and that's by Assembly Member Friedman. Eliminates parking requirements within a half mile of transit. Half a mile. If this development is within half a mile of transit, you can't have any parking requirements. The local community cannot require any parking requirements within half a mile. So it basically covers almost our entire town. No affordability requirements in any of these bills. There are no affordability requirements. So just do all these lot splits and don't require any of them to be affordable. That's a point I brought up with Scott Wiener when I met with him 3 years ago, over 3 years ago. Why don't you have any kind of affordability requirements in any of this? And it continues to baffle me and many others. There are many bills out there. I can't keep up with them. I came in a little bit late to the meeting. I think you're talking about hiring somebody to do this. I mean, it's a full-time job. Absolutely. There's a lot of lobbyists up in Sacramento making a lot of money tracking this. We have a lobbyist. Other cities are hiring lobbyists, never hired lobbyists before. So it's a full-time job. And these bills change at the end of the session. Yeah, they got to print them 72 hours out, but they change. And it's amazing. And they can make small changes that have huge impacts. So there'll be more bills, and they're all changing, and they've already. So what can we do? Praises to Assembly Member Miritsuchi. He floated ACA 7, which stands for Assembly Constitutional Amendment, recently. The co-author is Senator Glazier from up in the Bay Area to protect local control. This presentation is already longer than I wanted it to be, so let me try to wrap this up. I crafted an initiative, a statewide initiative, 2.5 years ago, and I worked with Legislative Council. A lot of people don't realize this. If you want to write an initiative, a statewide initiative, and get it on the ballot, and you go through this application process with Legislative Council, which is the group in Sacramento that writes all the bills for all the legislators, they will do it for a private citizen. And I didn't realize that. And I said, hey, well, look at that. So I went and got the signatures. I followed the process, and they assigned a very, very experienced attorney up there, Kirk Louie, with 25 years at Legislative Council. So, they basically wrote the initiative that I was going to float, and Miritsuchi picked it up, turned it into ACA 7. Senator Glazier co-authored it. As I mentioned earlier, they're now on the outs with the, with the big bosses in Sacramento, but they're sticking their necks out, and really proud of that. So one of the things we can do, and Redondo Beach just did it the other night, and I know Torrance just did it, but they passed a resolution just supporting ACA 7. CALE, California Alliance of Local Elected Statewide Coalition. Sorry, I don't have their website on here, but you can look it up, or anybody can email me at bill.brand@redondo.org, and I'll send you a link to that. You probably can't commit every Sunday to it. I'm going to do it. There's about 35 other local electeds that are on every Sunday, and we have good guests. So it's worth checking out, and you might find it much more interesting. Call or write your state assembly members in assembly. Say, we want to maintain local control. We want to work collaboratively. We want to add more affordable housing. If you're just going to take everything away from us and our ability to do what we need to get done, then it's going to be very difficult for us to sustain ourselves. And lastly, join California Cities for Local Control. I'm very happy to see my neighboring council member, Mike Griffiths, form this group. And so I'll let him take over and talk about what that's about, and then we'll take some questions. So go ahead, Mike, are you on?
Yep. Yeah, I'm here. Thanks a lot, Bill. You covered a lot of the main points, that there's a lot of attacks on our cities and our ability to manage our own land use and housing. And we in Torrance felt very strongly that we felt the state was overreaching, but we felt very powerless to do anything about it. And that's what inspired me to form California Citizens for Local Control. We felt that individual cities can fight these bills one by one and really very ineffectively. And we felt that by banding all the cities who support protection of local control together to speak as in a unified voice, we'd have a much stronger voice. And that's the basis of what California Citizens for Local Control is. It's purely reaching out to all the elected city officials, mayors and council members in every city throughout the state of California. It's a daunting task for us to do, but we want to identify as much support as we can for those who want to protect local control in their own communities. As Bill said, you know, one size does not fit all. Our communities are all varied and different, and Sacramento really has no idea the diversity of the different communities that we have. And for them to be making these types of decisions for us, we believe is wrong. And thankfully, I've reached out as our group. We have about 36 volunteers that are reaching out to all the electeds in California. We've reached out to over 3/4 of them. And so far we've gotten 450 elected officials now supporting the protection of local control statewide. And we've got over 64 cities who've now passed resolutions in support of protecting local control as well. And all of that information, all those elected officials and the city resolutions that have passed for us are all posted on our website, which is www.localcontrolca.com. I want to thank all the cities here in the South Bay COGS district who have joined up with us. In fact, that's a vast majority of you already have. There's a couple of cities that haven't. We'd love to have your support. We think that it's really important to speak together as a unified voice, in addition to your own speaking and opposing the bills that you think are important. We're not after any particular bill. We're just after the premise of really we need to protect local control in regards to housing and land use. We believe that cities are the best place for that to happen. And we want to see the state encourage us by not beating us over the head with mandates, but to incentivize us to do the things that they'd like us to do. Bills like SB 15, which give us good incentives and don't force our hands and give us the ability to control what we do. Those are the types of bills we'd love to see more of. And bills like the things that Bill's already mentioned, SB 9, 10, and many, many others are really taking away our ability to manage our own cities. And so if for some reason, and we haven't reached out to everyone yet, if we haven't reached out to you, please go to our website. You can sign up or send me an email there, and we'd be happy to get you all the information on how we can add your name or your city to have a resolution and support. Really appreciate all the support we've gotten from you so far. I'm very, very pleased to say that Southern California has been tremendously supportive of this. And like I said, 450 elected officials responding to an unsolicited email from an unfunded group is a pretty remarkable statistic. And we're very proud of the fact that our volunteers who are very passionate about this have worked very hard to make that happen. Thank you all. And Bill and I'll take any questions.
Yeah, I just
Are there questions? And I have a question initially. What is the difference between the California Alliance of Local Electeds and the California Citizens for Local Control? They're separate organizations, correct?
Yeah, they're both just grassroots groups. I don't think either one are like an official organization, C3, C4, but yeah, they're all forming. They're all in their infant stages, and they're all growing. And they're all bipartisan. They're both bipartisan.
Correct. And we don't, California Citizens for Local Control, we don't ask you to participate in any meetings. We don't do really any education. We just identify support. The Cali group, another group, we work in conjunction with them. They do more on the education. They do more of the regular weekly meetings to help people learn more and have discussion. And we work in conjunction with them, but we're the ones identifying the elected officials statewide who support that, and in an effort to lobby all the bill makers, the governor, and all the groups involved in making positions on these bills. So we're kind of like a little lobbying agency for all the people who support local control, and we don't charge a penny to do it.
Thank you. Mayor Boyles has a question.
Thank you. I just want to thank you both, Bill and Mike, for your stewardship and advocacy related to housing. Bill, I know you've been working on it a long time, and while I've only made a couple of those Sunday meetings, I know you're on pretty much every one of them. I just want to clarify one point. We have 17,000 people in El Segundo in 1 square mile. In addition to that, we have a 2 square mile refinery, and then we have 2 square miles of commercial class A that hold 10 million square feet of office space, which is more dense than anywhere else from a commercial standpoint in all of LA County, including downtown. And so for us, Bill, you mentioned the 16 cents that you get. I'm sure you're aware that El Segundo is almost at the very bottom of the 88 cities in LA County with 6 cents, or we get 6% basically of the property tax allocation that was left over from late 70s Prop 13. So it's very difficult for us to want to build. And to your point about the cost of housing is more than the benefit. Well, it's even more so in a city like El Segundo or maybe even Torrance for that matter, where you have a large concentration of commercial that feeds the entire region. So I just want to make that point. And thank you both for everything you're doing.
Yes, and I want to echo that comment. Thank you so much, both of you, for your advocacy. We're very grateful to your for your initiative.
Well, I hope any cities that have not yet passed Mike's resolution he's talking about, or support of ACA 7 will. It's our own assembly member in our area anyway that's authored it, and we're very appreciative of that. So we hope everybody will consider in support of ACA 7 going forward. We just passed a resolution. It's pretty simple. It's a very simple. It's a very simple amendment to the Constitution.
Thank you. So now we're going to move on to the transportation reports.
Yeah, this is Steve Lance. Hi, everybody. I want to talk first about what's going on at Metro today. The Metro board took 4 significant discussions and actions. It took 3 or 4 hours. The first one was regarding this proposed fareless system initiative. It's evolving into a pilot over 24 months or so. And that pilot would cost Metro approximately $200 million in revenue. They're looking to involve the muni operators in addition to their own operations. And at the meeting today, for the first time, Metro board members expressed their intention to make sure that the muni operators contribute or find a way to replace their own lost fare revenue. At first, when this was developed, Metro was going to cover everybody, but it looks now like the most important decision that they'll make next month is whether or not to involve the munis in the pilot and whether the munis will be able to offset the lost revenue if they go fareless. Now, the fareless program was originally for all riders. It's been reduced dramatically. The current fare categories that are going to be involved are, first of all, students K through 12, and there's a big effort by college students to get included as community college students. And then secondly, and that would happen as soon as August. And then the second phase would be for low income riders, and that would happen as soon as January. So this pilot has turned into a major policy and service initiative at Metro that has ramifications for the muni operators as well. A lot of discussion. I can answer questions on that in a minute. The second item that came up was an amendment to federal project priorities. If you haven't heard, Metro Inglewood is developing the Inglewood connector, transit connector, to connect the Crenshaw line to the new SoFi Stadium and the arenas. That connector project is, Inglewood is going to go forward to seek federal funds for this, either Olympic money or other monies that they can find at the federal level. And they've already received state money and some of our regional money. So they wanted to make sure that Metro would be collaborating and coordinating on its federal strategy. And so they got that approved unanimously today, that Metro will cooperate and collaborate as Inglewood tries to go for additional federal funds. The next issue that came up was a good discussion on the airport Metro connector. Metro had originally costed this out at around $580 million. Now it's up to $885 million. That increase was not attributable to mismanagement. It was attributable to delays, material costs, the fact that they're having to phase the project in 2 separate phases. And so the board approved going forward with the project at the new cost estimate, but it did trigger a lot of conversation about why are all these projects that Metro's doing, they're big capital projects, costing more, and what is going to be the impact on future capital projects? So we'll be keeping track of that over the next few months as they get into that discussion and resolve how they're going to pay for projects when they don't have the money and the projects keep going up in price. Finally, there was a request, a motion to use state cap and trade money. There's a program called Low Carbon Transit Operations, or LCTOP. And that was approved for 2 purposes: the Crenshaw LAX cost overrun, and if there's money left in this year's program after that, then the money would go for FSI to implement the Fairless System Initiative. Those programs get approved on an annual basis, so we think that the increase on the Crenshaw LAX project is big enough to swallow the entire LCTOP funds this year, and it may need money again next year. So the FSI program was approved at the board with an either or phrase. You could do either of them, or you could do one alone. So I think that's the big discussions today at the Metro board, and I'll answer any questions.
Are there questions for Steve? All right, thank you, Steve. Are James Butts or Mike Bolke here for their portion?
I think I covered.
They're not. Steve gave the report.
Okay. May we now have the Transportation Committee report. Christian?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just try to be quick here. We had a lot of presentations from Metro this past meeting. I'm going to put in the chat here some information for you. Metro did present to us related to their coordinated plan, but they closed the commenting period on April 19th. We did try to get that extended. They did tell David, though, that they would accept additional comments. So there are some links in there for you if you want to take a look at it and provide any information to them. They will most likely take that up through the end of the month. Steve talked about the FSI system. We had a presentation on that. There is a survey that Jackie was putting out to all of you. I don't know if now that the vote has happened, if that still is germane, but
the vote won't happen until May, so it is still germane.
So I would highly recommend that each of you and or pass it off to staff and your colleagues as well. Take that survey just to gather some more information on what the effects of these proposals would have on your city and or your transit riders. We did have a presentation on the Crenshaw North Extension project, as well as the Airport Metro Connector project, both very interesting, and I'm sure we'll have more on that in the future. That's it. Thank you.
No, it isn't. It isn't.
Oh,
We have an action
I'm
item.
sorry. And we have an action item. My bad. We have an action item tonight. We are requesting to move $100,000 from Measure M program to support the local travel network. It is on page 71 of your agenda packet. I guess we can open it up to if there are any questions related to that before we take action.
We're going to need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second. May we have a reverse roll call, please?
Sure. Any opposition to approving the Measure M budget request amendment? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we have the South Bay COG program action items, reports, and updates. So Jackie, do you want to go ahead with that? research regarding more local control regarding health regulations.
Okay, tonight from Service Planning Area 8, we have Lindsay Lastra, who's going to give us an update on Service Planning Area 8. And Lindsay's here, I know. I don't, okay. And it's just a very brief report, and we wanted to talk about more on non-COVID related what SPA 8 is doing and how you, what might be of interest to cities.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. I'm Lindsay Lastra. I am from the Department of Public Health. I cover both Service Plan Areas 7 and 8. I work under Dr. Sylvia Prieto. Since she couldn't be here today, Nancy, who's been our
I
member,
can't hear her now.
has been kind of being consistent to sharing the information with us. So I wanted to make sure to provide some health data information and hopefully really continue the dialogue that we hopefully are starting with you all to provide data and really link you all to some of the programs and initiatives that we have going on in this SPA 8 area. So let me share my screen with you. I'm trying to see how I'll be able to, yeah, this should be it. Okay, so if I try to share my screen, I think I lose some level of control, but we'll work from here. Can you see the slides then?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so what we really want to do is really focus on non-COVID related. It's a little challenging for me, and my brain's also very much COVID, but it's getting funner to kind of walk outside of COVID for a while. So I wanted to talk about some of our data that we have. And I'm sure some of you have seen the Healthy Places Index reports, possibly have used it. And if you haven't, I definitely invite you to use it because I think it does provide a lot of insight around policies as well as really identifying gaps as well as assets in communities. So I do invite you to visit their website. But I do want to share, before I get started with some of that data, that the HPI or the Healthy Places Index score basically looks at 8 areas in policy action areas, and it includes the economic, education, transportation, social, neighborhood, housing, clean environment, and healthcare access policies. So it really does look at a comprehensive way of how the community is doing. So when we get when we're looking at our SPA 8 cities in this report, and we didn't pull everything out. We did want to highlight though kind of the wide range of percentile rankings that they've provided cities. And so I want to first always share that what the way Healthy Places Index has done it is they don't use the reds and blues and trying to show like what's really negative. They really try to stay more on the positive side, because one thing that we always want to share is that although some communities might score low on the percentile ranking, they always continue to have an asset. And so it's something that I always want to share with folks, or I want people to have in their mind as they're thinking about our different communities. As you will see in this presentation, that regardless that although they might have a poor ranking, they have assets, right? We're thinking about the community. We're thinking about libraries. We can think about the social programs, the social networks that are happening in this community. So those are assets that we always want to kind of have in mind, but also looking at how do we help the gaps that we are seeing. So for example, we see some of our beach cities, Manhattan Beach, Redondo Beach in the high percentile, 99th percentile for Manhattan Beach. Ranchos Palo Verdes is 94th percentile. Redondo Beach comes out 93rd percentile, and Torrance 77th percentile. And so essentially, you can imagine this number as for Manhattan Beach, only 1% of cities in SPA in the county or in the state of California are doing better, and the vice versa. 98% of cities in state are doing worse than Manhattan Beach. So that's that kind of like that high level of a percentile. But if we look at the next kind of grouping, we look at Carson, that comes in at 58th percentile. Gardena is at the 42 percentile. Lawndale is at 31. Hawthorne comes in at 29, and Inglewood is coming in at 27 percentile. When we look at the next grouping, and before I move on, when we look at these communities or cities, we're also looking at kind of a more middle income, whereas previous slides showed more of our affluent areas. And so really just looking at how do we help kind of bridge some of those gaps, and how do we improve all communities so everyone's doing well. When we look at our lower ranking cities, the one circled here is Westmont, that comes in first percentile. And I don't think that will be a huge surprise to most folks. But I think, it's something that we really want to address, and how do we work together so that all of our cities in SPA 8 are truly able to say, we live in a SPA, in a community that, where we're all living a good, having a good expectancy, life expectancy, et cetera. And so we can get into more of like, what are some of these gaps that we're identifying, in particular, like in Westmont. Life expectancy in this here, it doesn't go in straight order. So Rancho Palo Verde actually comes in, is listed here second from the top, but it's actually the highest life expectancy at 85.4 years. Westmont, unfortunately, comes at the lowest life expectancy of 76.6 years, and that's almost a 9-year difference. So again, we want, it shouldn't matter where you live to tell you how long you should expect to live. And really, we want to identify what are the issues. And we know crime tends to be a big factor. It tends to be a low-income community. They don't see much as far as healthcare access, et cetera. And I can show you as we go through this. But we definitely see, a lot of wonderful resources when it comes to like our Manhattan Beach or Redondo Beach, Torrance, showing truly kind of like a higher level of life expectancy, and can we learn from those communities to really bring forth some of those resources out to Westmont. As we think about health and why people are living longer or not, definitely healthcare and accessing healthcare is important, but it's not the reason why people would live longer. But it's still very important. So we want to see, when we looked at our data for the LA County Health Survey, South Bay adults reported that they had a regular source of healthcare, or 84.5 of adults in the South Bay reported having regular source of healthcare. But another picture I want to paint around this is that people when we look down kind of at more detailed level, we do see a difference of who is able to access, or who's having difficulties accessing healthcare. So even though people do have health insurance, we do get, there are reports and data that show that people still have challenges accessing healthcare. So it's just, again, another way to look at the data, and again, showing some of our disparities and how do we help bridge some of those gaps. So Westmont coming in at 31% of people experiencing difficulty accessing healthcare. Also, Council District 15 having challenges of report of accessing healthcare. So really looking to see how do we work better around that. Number of uninsured adults, we actually see Lawndale coming in at 35% as being the most uninsured and of adults. As far as children, because we've had most children are covered by some level of government or some level of health insurance. We do still see some differences, but really the larger numbers of children who are uninsured come from Gardena, Lawndale, and Hawthorne, as well as Inglewood. Oh, so not Gardena, I'm sorry, Lawndale, Hawthorne, and Inglewood, but Gardena still is coming up pretty high. So in comparison to the other cities. Another measure of health, we look at the built environment, and you're going to see built environment pop up a few times in my presentation. But we're really, in this example for this slide, we're talking about people who can walk in their neighborhood. And the reason this is important is because you all know physical activity as well as a good diet are important for people to live a healthy life. But it's challenging if you aren't able to truly just walk in your neighborhood. We don't want to force people to have to get a gym membership or have to do something that takes them out of their normal area where they live to be able to get exercise. So how do we improve those issues? And so a lot of our work is around trying to see how do we increase walkability. Are there ways to create walking paths? And I think a lot of cities have done this a lot more now. When I remember when I first started back in 2008, walkability and built environment was really this big old exciting stuff that was happening. But I think more and more we're looking at making sure that sidewalks are walkable. Can you push your stroller, et cetera, next to another person together while you're walking and exercising? But really, how do we make that, making sure that you have enough lighting to really promote that kind of physical activity happening in your neighborhoods, in your cities. Recreational space came back for our communities, and Manhattan Beach had 2% of their space available for recreation. But I think, we're looking at like within the city. I know, there's the beach, right? But still, we're thinking about how do we have recreational space for communities, because recreational space isn't just about being out, but looking at can our children go out and play sports, et cetera, at a park, or can you as an adult set up a team and go out to play? And that's challenging when you don't have recreational space. So is there an opportunity to increase that? Open schools up, that kind of thing. Mental health is another aspect, and I think this is something that's super interesting, of interest to many. We found in Manhattan Beach, percentage of adults that were diagnosed with depression was 17%, which actually is the highest city in this data. And so again, do we have enough mental health resources? Is there a way we can link more of those resources? We do have the Department of Mental Health who contract out to providers. So can we provide some linkages to help your communities get some more linkages? And the Department of Mental Health has their SASH line, and I'll be gladly, we can send that information to you all. Anybody can call at any time, and they're able to get linked to potential services. People experiencing homelessness. Again, I know this is something it's been extremely at top of people's priority. In SPA 8 last January 2020, we did, we pulled data. There was a point in time count where we got an estimate number of folks and got some demographic characteristics. As you can see, we had about a total of 4,500 or 4,560 individuals counted as homeless. 3,686 were individuals, 286 were families, and about half of them, almost half of them, were chronically homeless. So people that have been homeless for more than a year. We also see the breakdown, the racial breakdown between Black African American of being 28%, Latinos being 32%, and White Caucasian being 34%. An interesting fact is that we've actually seen the rate of Latino homeless increase in the last couple of years, and that's becoming, it's very concerning, especially because we have so many immigrant and many being just displaced in the way of like where they're living, et cetera. So this is important to see. And then you see the breakdown, and I do want to highlight the substance use disorder piece. We see 35% of those folks were identified as having a substance use disorder. And I wanted to highlight the work that we're doing at our Curtis Tucker Health Center with our substance abuse prevention program, where we are control program, where we are partnering with our substance abuse counselors to really link people to providers that are out in the community. And so again, if it's something we can bring a connection to you all, linkages to resources, we could definitely do that.
Excuse me, Ms. Lastra. Excuse me, Ms. Lastra. I just want to ask you, how much longer is your presentation? Because we have a lot more. We have a lot more on our program.
No problem. I can actually speed up and finish off really quick because I wanted to just share the last two programs.
Thank you.
Sure. So really, the last two things where I wanted to engage you all is around our violence and trauma prevention initiative. And in particular, we are working with the Westmont West Athens Community Action for Peace. And really, this is a part where we want to engage with our partners to really bring in levels of just partnerships for more economic development, any kind of partnership where we can really link resources. And the last project that I wanted to share about was our South LA, South Bay African American Maternal Mortality Community Action Teams. It's a bit of a long name. So it's our AIM project. And really want to just highlight, again, this is really an effort around community partnership and how do we bring together our partners to help improve the mortality or basically not have that level of mortality happening with our African and Black infants. And pretty much I am stopping there just to give you all that time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lastra. Are there any questions for Ms. Lastra? Yes, Steve Zuckerman.
Yes, I have one. There has been discussion about the county, given that different areas in the county do have different profiles with respect to COVID, of treating different areas of the county in different ways with respect to reopening. Is there a serious discussion of that within your agency or not?
Can you be a little more specific as to what do you mean about different ways of opening?
Well, right now, the guidelines for business openings and that kind of thing are pretty much county-wide, correct?
Right. So all of our health officer orders are always countywide.
Right. Now, to the degree, for example, that there are areas in the South Bay that are not experiencing the same degree of COVID infections, there are people who think that it may be helpful if businesses within this area, I'm speaking about the Palos Verdes area, were given different guidelines as opposed to areas where there's more COVID infection. Is that something that has been discussed within public health or not?
You know, I think the challenge with that is that the disease doesn't see borders, right? Or won't see the geography of things. And so I think that's definitely something that we've discussed. I wouldn't say that we are discussing having a difference between cities, just because thankfully Rancho Palos Verdes isn't seeing the number of cases, but it doesn't mean it can't happen. And so we have to maintain that health officer order across the board, regardless of what it looks like, because it can change since, again, you know, people don't see a city line and determine to stop there. But I can definitely bring it up to the leadership and see if there is any more discussion around that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Yes, I think that Jeff Kiernan has some comment on this.
Yes, I was furiously trying to type it into the chat, but in fact, I believe earlier tonight, the COG actually voted to support AB 1251. That's the bill that would essentially allow something like what Councilmember Zuckerman just mentioned. Currently, the county is not allowed to divvy up around the county, so that's controlled by the state.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. And I apologize. I was at a transportation board meeting until about 7, and I should have seen that on the agenda. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Hildy Stern has a comment or question. Councilmember Stern.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Lindsay. This was such an informative presentation. Is there a way that we can access this information on your website?
It's not on our website. That's the challenging part, which is always extremely challenging, but I could definitely share the data reports where we pulled it from. We can definitely send that to you. I wouldn't say it's going to be an easy find, but we'll lead you to the data.
Thank you. I would really appreciate that. And how often is it updated?
So yeah, that's always a challenging. It's done every couple of years and depends on the report and what, you know, what type of report we're doing. I will tell you, likely because of COVID, all of our data analysts are pulled over to COVID right now. So it's probably going to be a bit of a delay right now. Let me see, I could probably, I would have to look at when the last reporting year was for that data that I shared with you all. And I can definitely share that so that you know what was the date frame of when that data was taken.
I think it said 2018.
Thank you. I thought so too, but
Yeah.
I know we've also looked at others. So thank you.
Can you stop sharing your screen for us? Thank you.
Yes. Sorry, I'm trying to figure that out. I thought I
did.
did.
I think this was such a valuable presentation. I'd like to echo what Councilmember Stern said. I would like to see if you could make this available to all of us. I think all of us in SPA 8 would really benefit from seeing the data on our individual cities. Can you do that? Could you send it to Jackie? And then Jackie, perhaps you could distribute it to the rest of us?
Yes.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thank you.
What I can do is I can see if I can add a little more data to give you each city a little more if we have it, because I think we try to condense it, and obviously it wasn't condensed enough, but we can definitely do it better.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Pleasure.
All right, I thank you all, and I think we'll move on to Jackie. The next on the agenda is General Assembly evaluations.
Right, and well, we can start off with Kim has an extremely fast PowerPoint that she's going to go through to tell you what happened at the General Assembly. What we'd like is if anybody has any opinions or things they want to share about their General Assembly experience, we'd like you to do that as well. But Kim, do you want to do that now?
Yes, sure. You can all see my screen?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So we had a really good attendance at the General Assembly. We had about 390 people that attended. Our registrations were very high, and we were a little bit worried that in this virtual setting, we were going to have trouble managing that volume of people, but it worked out really well. You can see that if you think about this for planning for the future and future events, you can see that we last year also had a very high registration rate, and only about around half attended. So we were on track for what our experience has been. The interest of actually the people that attended the event, you can see most of the attendees attended the COG talks. I think that was the main focus of the people that attended the event. And you can also see that a lot of the attendance kind of dropped off towards the end. And I think that might actually speak to the length. And so we might want to think about having maybe shorter events in the future, but all the panels were really interesting. I thought this was nice to see that we had about 32% were first-time attendees compared to about 65 repeats. So we were increasing our audience. And this is what people said that they were interested in as they registered. For the first time, we were asking people, we had a little more functionality with the registration. We could ask people, what are you interested in when you want to attend this event? And you can see about 62% were interested in the speakers. But I thought it was interesting also that about 14% were still interested in learning about the COG and also networking. This is the attendee composition. And you had almost a split of the city staff versus residents at 22% each. You had about 10% commissioners, 9% agencies, and about 8% elected officials, which sort of speaks to you don't have a huge number of elected officials in the South Bay, so that number I think tracks. And when you look at the attendees by location, you'll see Torrance is very high, Redondo Beach is high. Those are larger cities. But then you'll see there's good numbers from El Segundo, a smaller city, and then Carson, which is also a large city, you didn't have quite as much attendance. And I think in the past you've actually had more attendance from the city of Carson. But we were able to get better data because of the virtual format, and we were able to track things a little bit better. As far as people finding out about the event, about 62% found out from our emails. So our email blast list is very valuable, continues to be a valuable form of communication. And then we did ask people what they thought about the event. We only had about 32 individuals actually complete the survey after event. And we did send it back out again to see if we could get more. And I haven't gotten any more yet, but if we do get more, we'll add it to our data. Our ratings were high of the people that filled out the survey form. But you can see that we kind of had a mix. There was no consensus of whether people like the online platform versus an in-person. I think we got the response that we kind of thought we would. They liked in-person for networking, but they like the convenience of online. And then we have two great quotes here that you can look at and we can use for the future to promote the event. I think it was very beneficial to people. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and see if you have any questions.
Well, I just want to say, I want to thank you. I want to thank the staff, everyone who did such a wonderful job in putting the event together. I think everyone enjoyed it so much. And I want to thank Councilmember Horvath for his amazing organizational skills. And with that, I'm going to announce that we have a gift for you. And I think David has more to say on that. David?
We're going to be sent, David has shown you what we're going to be sending you, Christian. It's a very special, very limited edition South Bay mug with some lollipops and yellow pens.
I'll put it right behind me.
Thank you.
It made it all worthwhile, I'm sure.
Thank you again. And does anyone have any comments, any further comments on the General Assembly? All right. Jackie, I'm going to let you take it over on legislative visits.
Okay, on Jennifer makes the best remark of all, that our yellow pens are like gold, right? Okay, on the legislative visits, we were planning to do legislative visits, and I guess we're late into the game because the legislative session is moving on, but we did not have the capacity to do it any earlier. What we have so far is a 15-minute meeting with Assemblyman O'Donnell, meeting with Assemblywoman Burke, and then 2 meetings with housing staff of 2 senators. And they're not going to be till, I don't think any of these meetings, except for maybe O'Donnell, are until May. And I guess one of the things I wanted to mention is that I was thinking that maybe one of the ways we could convince our legislators that they should listen to us is if I could tell them what your cities are doing to meet RENA. And so I've actually asked your community development directors to send me bullet points, which I'm now collecting, as to how cities are trying to really comply, so that we don't look like we're just objecting, but we actually are taking them seriously and they should listen to us. But I guess I want to ask you also this evening, what we heard from Bill Brand and Mike Griffiths is that the powers that be are really working against us. And the other thing the steering committee directed was to talk to environmental groups and social and other groups that are lobbying the legislature. And I guess I'm wondering, did anything happen tonight that convinced you that we should not do these legislative visits? We should concentrate on the environmental and social groups that are lobbying the legislature. Any thoughts on that? No.
Jackie, I'll have a few thoughts. I thought that we were going to talk with the environmental groups so they could kind of join with us in our support. I don't know if I would necessarily have or ask them to convey the message, because I think the message is slightly different in terms of, want to continue to have local control versus an environmental group that probably has a, that's not their message necessarily. So I would say we should continue to go forward with the message, even if we're a little bit late in getting it to them.
Can I ask any of you that have environmental groups that you think would be good for us to talk to send the names and contact information to me? Okay, thank you. Thank you. I will go on because I know we're late. The next is the South Bay Fiber Network. And on the fiber network, we're being talked about throughout the state. I think I've mentioned that to you before, but we're working, Wally and I have had 2 extremely good conversations with the WIB and the South Bay Workforce Investment Board and the Beach Cities Health District. And what we've talked to them about is that now that we have this network, we all are connected with each other. And so Beach Cities Health District can do a workshop for the WIB on healthy workplaces. And the WIB can do workforce development in the Hawthorne City Hall. And so how are we going to make that happen? And we're talking about maybe a pilot in May where we actually do try to put something on the ring and publicize it, that it's available to everybody. So, we want to make it come alive. The other thing that's happening with the speeches that I've been giving is that everybody is involved in the digital divide. And Wally is in steep conversations with Selwyn Hollins, who is the county CIO, and he is he's working on an incredible initiative called Deleting the Digital Divide. We've got Selwyn now coming to our May 17th South Bay Fiber Network Task Force to talk about his initiative, and we're trying to work with him on possibly doing a pilot in the South Bay. So while we're hooking up the last sites, we're also trying to figure out how we're going to make the network come alive, which is what I've been really hoping for. So it is very exciting. The other, I had another thought, which I've now forgotten, so I will go on. In keeping with what we're trying to do, we're trying to build the network out, not only in the business community and trying to get it closer to residents, but closer to neighborhoods. So I wanted to ask David to talk about the community project funding requests. First of all, what that is, and then what we've applied for. David?
Sure. So earlier this legislative session, House of Representatives reintroduced what was formerly earmarks to a new community project funding program that is supposed to be a little bit more transparent and reduce the likelihood of another bridge to nowhere project. So everything gets posted online and that sort of stuff. And what happens is each representative can make a recommendation to the Appropriations Committee for funding for up to 10 projects from a specific list of accounts, which are essentially existing department programs, like Department of Labor, Housing and Urban Development, some other ones. And so what we've done is submitted applications to our 3 congressional representatives in Congresswoman Berrigan and Waters districts. We've essentially reapplied for the Caltrans Sustainable grant that we just applied for to demonstrate 4 neighborhood center concepts, 2 in Carson in Berrigan's district, and then 1 in Hawthorne and 1 in Gardena in Maxine Waters districts. And those would essentially identify the sites, do help fund the community outreach, and then improve the sites to include whatever the community kind of shares with us as a priority. And then in Congressman Liu's district, we actually submitted 2 different applications. One is for a local travel network, I guess, refinement study to figure out if there's a feasible way to connect El Segundo to the rest of the local travel network, because they're kind of isolated right now. But the other one is keeping in line with the other 2 applications that would develop neighborhood sites, one in Redondo Beach at the Artesia Library. And that would be similar to the Carson and Gardena and Hawthorne proposals that would create a neighborhood center and bring technology closer to residents. The RPV site would create essentially a multi-government center that would allow citizens from the residents from throughout the peninsula, really, a one-stop shop to city halls, to the county, to the state, to federal offices, Metro, and other entities that want to participate, and kind of bring City Hall closer to residents, and would also be coupled with some digital divide efforts to address predominantly senior issues, making seniors more comfortable with technology and programs and that sort of stuff. So each site requested approximately $700,000 in funding from for various things. The timeline for when we'll know is kind of up in the air. This is sort of being built as they go. But the general idea is that they'll approve it as part of the appropriations process later this year. And if we're awarded something, we would have a year to spend it. So it'll be a quick mobilization, but we're good at that. So we'll figure it out if we get awarded. But I think it was Berrigan's district. They said they had over 100 applications. So it's probably some strong competition we're up against, but we're hoping that the kind of innovative nature of the proposals will kind of make us rise to the top, and we'll
Thank
see.
you.
So
thank you, David. So we'll let you know how those go. I know we're before I turn it over to Grace, I just want to I'll turn it over to Grace now. Grace, you're here, right? to do
I am
the
here.
senior and homeless.
Yeah. So just real briefly with seniors, we are revisiting the age-friendly network. And so we're going to be reaching out to all of our cities to really get them to start that application process and to get the a commitment letter from the mayor. And for those cities, and I mentioned it at the steering committee, there we do have a few cities that did sign on to the Milken Institute Best Cities Mayor's Pledge. And so that's like the first step. And now we can take that one step further with the AARP age friendly, and then really start looking at programs that will impact positively our seniors. And then also what's good for our seniors is good for the rest of the population. And so our next senior services working group meeting will be the end of May. It's going to be on May. Oh, I wrote it down and now I don't know where I put it. May 25th, I believe, the Tuesday after the Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, May 25th.
Okay. And then for homeless issues, the county released the current draft funding recommendations. They released them last Thursday, April 15th, and there's a 3-week period now for public comment. Public comment ends on May 6th, so I can put the link in the chat box to get to the recommendations chart and the fact sheets, and then also the link to be able to submit public comment. And then also, so that's looking forward for the budget for 21-22. We have 3 of our, well, basically 5 of our cities who received implementation funds. We have the 3 beach cities, Hawthorne and Inglewood, and there's going to be bridge funding to carry us through the end of this calendar year. So we will be getting a percentage. There's $1 million that the Board of Supervisors is making available, and we will get a percentage of that so that the funding will not end as it's currently expected to, which is the end of this fiscal year. So there will be an additional 6 months of bridge funding. And then also looking forward, originally there was $9 million that was available for the implementation funds back in 2018. And then in 2019, $6 million was made available for the COGS, and this was the innovation funds. So what the county is doing now is combining that amount of money to equal $15 million, and it's going to be split amongst the COGS based on homeless count data. And this is going to carry us through from January 2022 through June of 2023. And so these will be continuing opportunities for cities who have a housing navigator to apply for additional funding for that, and other types of ideas. So we haven't received guidelines yet from the county, but just to let you know that this money will be available. And then as soon as we know more information, we will be sharing that with everybody. And then back towards the end of 2020, Jackie and I, along with Wayne Winman from Lieutenant Wayne Winman from Redondo Beach Police Department, participated in a governance survey looking at the current LASA governance. So that report has now been made available, and it's on the LASA website. And there was actually a presentation today at the Homeless Policy Deputies meeting talking about some of the findings. And one of the main recommendations that this finding made is to have lived experience, individuals with lived experience on all committees, and really looking at adding to commissioners, to the current commissioners, including those with lived experience. And they also talked about abolishing the Regional Homeless Advisory Committee, and Lieutenant Wayne Winman is our representative, the COG representative on that committee. But my understanding is that that committee has kind of run its course, and they're going to make sure that information that's gained from that committee will be on some of their other committees, you know, like their CES committee and some of the other ones that they have. So anyway, I will make those 2 links to the County Homeless Initiative, public comment, and the LASA governance I'll put both those links in the chat box. And then our next meeting for the Homeless Services Task Force is on May 5th. And we will have, thanks to Mayor Zuckerman and his push to find Bakersfield reaching functional zero, we will now have a presentation by Liz Benishai with the Homeless Initiative, because there is an Achieving Functional Zero tool that is being developed or has been developed that cities can actually try to figure out modeling inflow, outflow, to really look at how long it's going to take them to achieve functional zero. And then the folks from Bakersfield, the Bakersfield Kern Regional Homeless Collaborative will be talking kind of about their case study, looking at the chronically homeless. So that's on the agenda for our May 6th Homeless Services Task Force meeting. And that is it.
Thank you. One more thing from me, and that's the telework workshop. We, as you know, we had a telework workshop somewhere in the middle of COVID. And now I discussed with the steering committee, the community development directors, and the city managers, whether we should do another one about how to open up a hybrid and in a safe environment, and the things to look for, permanent teleworking policies, best practices. And so I am looking for a speaker. And once I have that, we'll be sponsoring a telework workshop for city staff. And obviously you'll all be invited as well. Madam Chair, I'm going to turn it over to you for the ad hoc committees.
Thank you. So the first that I want to mention is the nominating committee, which has been formed. Council members Horvath, Huff, Gaisley, and me. And we had one meeting. So I'd like to announce that nominations are open, and I'd like to hear from anyone who's interested in any of the following positions. Second vice president, and 4 positions are available on the steering committee. So please let us know if you are interested. And you can contact either me or any member of the committee and let us know. And I think, Jackie, that we present the slate at the May meeting. Is that how that works?
And then we open nominations and present the slate. Yes.
Okay, we open nominations, present the slate, and then at the June meeting is when the election happens.
Close nominations and
open and close nominations in May, and then the election is in June.
That we close nominations in June, and so they're open for yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair, we're not going to announce who our recommendations are this evening.
No.
Okay.
We have to open it so that other people can indicate their interest.
Madam Chair, wouldn't it make sense to let people know the nominated slates so they would know not to continue nominating the same people, and that anyone else who's interested could then put their name on that too?
That's how we've done it in the past.
Yeah, the point of the slate is to, present that as part of the nominating committee's recommendation.
Usually,
but we're not presenting the slate until May.
It's presented in May.
Well, wouldn't it be helpful
Jackie,
for people to know who's nominated?
That's when we present the slate, then they'll know.
Now, is that how we've done it the last 12 years, Jackie? I thought that we made a recommendation and we came to the board meeting with our recommendations.
No, you came to the board meeting in May. We always do it in May.
Okay.
I don't know if you've done something early, but you've done it. We normally do it in May.
Okay. So we've already met, and okay, we'll come back again in May. Hopefully it'll be earlier in the agenda.
Yeah.
All right. So in any case, if anyone's interested for any of those positions, let us know, please. The next is the bylaws committee, and we are asking if we can have others who want to participate. So right now, George Chin and Stacy Armato and myself are members of the bylaws committee. And is there anyone else who'd like to be a member of the bylaws committee?
Yes, I would like to be a member, and as an attorney, I would like to help with amendments that were recommended by Attorney Mike Jenkins to make it clear and delineate the responsibilities of the steering committee in the bylaws.
Thank you. Okay, So now we have 4, and so I'll have someone contact all of you, and we'll set up a meeting to.
I'll be doing that. I'll send out all the information.
Oh, you're going to coordinate the meetings?
Yeah, I can coordinate it, and I'm going to send out the bylaws, so you'll see what we're working from.
Thank you so much. Okay, that's great. Okay, that's all I have. And the next is agency reports. Now, we didn't get any reports. Is there anyone who wants to make an oral report?
Madam Chair, I would just say that the Regional Council Spotlight that I sent is a minute summary of sorts of the Regional Council meeting, and that was included in the agenda.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
My report from SCAG was included in the earlier reports in number 4.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? All right, with that, I think there's an announcement that Lomita Mayor Mark Warnick is the incoming president of Contract Cities. And I think that happens in May. Is that correct, Jackie?
Yes. Yes, I
Okay.
just, yeah.
And with that, I'm going to say that our next board meeting is Thursday, May 27th. And we're going to adjourn for the evening, and you all have a great month. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.